pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for attending. We're going to jump right into the meeting here. I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Gentlemen, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? We got action items coming out of closed session. We've got July 24th and July 27th. Anybody got anything? You've already noted a change? Okay. I have a motion then to approve them as presented with changes.
So moved.
Thank you, Brandon. Second. Second. Thank you. Betsy, please.
Brewer.
Yes.
Raj.
Yes.
Maddox.
Yes.
Siren.
Yes.
Worley. Yes. Ravitch.
Yes.
And Cotton.
Yes. Okay, moving on. We've got a budget hearing that we're going to go ahead and get started with. I'll go ahead and open it. Nothing's changed since last month, correct?
I did not change the tentative budget. It's exactly the same. The goal is to reduce dependence on those early taxes that we receive in May and June. And we are closing out the year with positive amounts in all operating funds. I would entertain any questions or ask the board to approve as presented last month.
Okay. Audience can ask questions too if they would like, in addition to the board. None?
Not for me.
Nobody? Very well.
Very nice job laying out the vision.
And do I have a motion to close the budget hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Betsy, please.
Yes. I'm sorry, yes.
You could always pick two.
And Greg, for a second.
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, Raj.
Yes.
Maddox.
Yes.
Siren.
Yes.
Worley.
Yes.
Ravitch.
Yes.
Cotton. Or, I'm
Yes.
sorry, Brewer. And then Cotton, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, yes. All right, moving on then to 4.2. I need the approval of the FY18 budget as presented so we can submit to ISBE.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Betsy, please.
Yes, Maddox.
Yes.
Siren.
Yes.
Worley.
Yes.
Ravitch.
Yes.
Brewer.
Yes.
Raj.
Yes.
And Cotton.
Yes. Did I need to read this resolution?
Sure.
And then we approve it again?
No, you can read it aloud, but it is in the board packet, so it's fine if you do.
Okay, it's a resolution regarding the 2017-2018 budget. Whereas the Board of Education had received and reviewed the district tentative budget for the 2017-18 school year, fiscal year 2018. And whereas such tentative budget has been prepared by the administration in accordance with Section 17-1 of the school code. And whereas the Secretary of the Board has made such tentative budget available for public inspection in the district's administrative offices beginning August 10th, 2017, and has published notice of the availability of such budget for public inspection. Now therefore be it resolved that a public hearing on such tentative budget and any amendments thereto shall be held at 6:30 p.m. on September 26, 2017 at the district's administrative offices, 2001 West Mulberry Street, Chatham, Illinois. There. It's formal, right? Charlotte, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks for your team, administration. Appreciate it. Moving on, what do we got? Communication. Looks like we got a report from the Director of Safety and Security. That would be you, Randy, right? Me. All right. Good evening.
Hi there.
Who was that?
Oh, hi.
Hi there.
Hi, Susan. Okay. First of all, some of the stuff I'm going to talk about tonight, I promise to try to be brief, is going to be for the two newest board members. Maybe haven't had a chance to delve into the interesting world of safety and security, so it'll be redundant for some of you on the panel, but for others, maybe not. To say that it's been a rough September for District 186 is an understatement. They've had 2 bomb threats up there in 2 different schools, had a weapon in a trash can just last week at the Southeast High School. So I think we'd all agree that when it comes to safety and security, no news is good news. So with that, I'd like to close. I'll take any questions you might have. Thank you for your interest. Our security team listed here, we have 7 school resource officers, are all retired police officers. 4 state police, 2 Chatham, and 1 from the U.S. Marshal Service. 2 of them are full-time, the other 5 are part-time. 3 hall monitors at the high school, which are kind of go-betweens with the resource officers and the administration. Security monitor at the middle school, Tana School, he opens the door, buzzes the door for us. And then each school has safety teams we started about 2-3 years ago. And we meet periodically to talk about problems in the school that's related to safety and security. We're required annually to have 3 evacuation drills because of the School Safety Drill Act, which was passed in finished in 2015, which are fire drills basically. 1 law enforcement drill, which includes a shooting incident. Previous to this law being passed, the police could come if they wanted to, if they had time. Now they're required to attend. 1 bus evacuation drill and 1 severe weather drill, shelter in place. So this is what's required annually at each of the 6 schools. We also do 1 extra drill per year. We picked one of the 6 schools last year on Halloween. We were able to do a tornado reenactment out at Ball. Use all the staff. We had the fire and police, a lot of emergency responders from IEMA. Channel 20 was there along with Betsy. So we do 1 school, get everybody together and do 1 big drill, usually on a SIP day, just to kind of test our resources. Don't know what we're going to pick this year. It won't be a tornado. It'll be something entirely different and new. Health, life, safety is another set of responses that we're required to do annually. Our first one is tomorrow at CES at 7:30. And these are required by the ROE, so these are also something we have to do every year. Our insurance cooperative rep, who is kind of our adjuster for work comp, has agreed to do a building inspection with us for the last 3 years. So October, usually sometimes October, November, he'll come through and just look for problems in the buildings. These are not required, they're not mandated. If he finds something, we don't have to fix it, but he recommends that we do. So this is an additional activity that we utilize just to make sure that we're doing what we should do and keeping things together. Now, although we weren't as bad as 186, we did have some problems last year and this year. Betsy. February 8th of last year, we did have a handwritten gun threat at the high school. We didn't have a suspect at the time, but we thought we kind of knew who it was after interviewing some kids. We did have to lock the school down. It took about 3.5 to 4 hours to search the building. Didn't find anything, so there was a lockdown and search. And September 8th of this year, the same exact thing. Different individuals. That other individual's gone. But with this one, we changed our search procedures and were able to search the school within 2 hours. All the lockers, all the book bags, and have the kids come out and check them out in the hallways. Didn't find anything either. That one is still under investigation. The day after the February 8th drill that was on the previous page, we had a bomb threat at the high school. This occurred about 2 in the afternoon, and we decided after looking at it and thinking about it, we should get the kids out of the building, so we evacuated all the kids to GES next door. Ended up being the same individual that wrote the threat on the 8th previous day, and we identified that student. No, it's not all bad. We do have some good stuff in this district with safety and security. We've recently done something new, Betsy, called a 410 schedule. All the resource officers work 8-hour shifts. We have one that's agreed and volunteered to work a 10-hour day. And the benefit of that is I can use him to spend more time in the other buildings, plus have him come to the high school at the end of the day. We usually, most of the security staff leaves at 3:30 at GHS. And at 2:55 when the bell rings, visitors, parents, coaches, teams, clubs all meet and come into the school. There's nobody there but a few coaches in the gymnasium outside of the field and our custodians. So this individual works till 5 o'clock. And it gives us another little added layer of security in the busiest school that we have in the district. Also, the last 2 years, Chatham PD has agreed to come out to the schools on the first Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in a proactive means and just have a visual appearance at the buildings. They come out at the beginning of the day when the kids are being dropped off, and they come out at dismissal. We ask them not to write any tickets unless they see something egregious. This is kind of a public relations, see the police in a non-threatening manner, have the police come into the school, make sure the parents are not smoking in the parking lot, not on their cell phones, using their seat belts and their safety seats for their kids. This is funded by the PD. It doesn't cost us anything. So it is an overtime detail for them because all 6 of the schools are covered. We have a new entrance at the elementary school in Chatham, which I'm sure most of you are aware of by now. We're still working on a couple of tweaks with the front door, but this is a huge improvement. As you know, we didn't have a buzzer system there in the past where we could secure people when they first came in. They could walk in the building and go left or right instead of maybe going straight to the office. Now we have kind of a little sally port place where they have to stop and be let into the school. We also have our vendor, our camera vendor, who's agreed to give us a monitor to put in Office 1 at the high school. They've already run the cabling, and this will be used to show current events at the building. We can have a camera feed on it. We can have a weather channel. We can have a message from the superintendent or Dr. Tapin. It can be divided into 4 quadrants and have something scrolling in each one of them, and it's free. So we decided, yes, we'll take that. That should be next month, I hope.
And Randy has been disciplined for putting the Cubs up on that screen.
Well, I want to put something topical up there.
I like the Jim Beam part.
I didn't see that.
Now we can discipline it.
I didn't see that. I didn't drink Jim Beam.
Jimmy shot, right?
Technologies then, Randy?
I'm sorry?
Who, was this card, who provided this free to us?
Synergy, or Cardinal.
Okay,
It's now
Cardinal,
Synergy,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Brandon Kiefer.
Yeah.
The Chatham Fire Department has a new response vehicle for use at our schools, and I thought this was important because in the past, if an athlete was injured, they walked out with the gurney or the stretcher, put him on, carried him off, and took him to the ambulance and lifted him up again. With this vehicle, you can't see it from this picture, but there's a gurney in the back of that they lift the athlete on and place him on it, and then when they drive to the back of the ambulance, it slides into the ambulance without them touching or holding the student again. So if it's a neck or a head injury, it's important because they're able to stabilize the student without lifting him more than they have to. We also recently tested and successfully, the first of the school year, all of our emergency access points at our buildings for our first responders, which is our police. What this means is that's a picture of a mobile data terminal in one of the squad cars. What that means is when they come to the school, any of the schools, they can access our cameras so they can see inside the building before they get in what's going on. So it's handy because if we tell them there's a certain situation in a certain location, they can pull it up and look before they even get out of the car. During our last lockdown, even though it was 2 hours, we fed the last group of kids a little after 2 p.m. We went into lockdown about 11:45, so it was right at the start of the first lunch period, and we have 3 lunch periods at the high school. So some kids were hungry, didn't get to eat as fast as they could. Everybody did get fed and got to leave on time. But in talking to Chad, we're trying to determine if we can maybe provide some sort of a non-perishable kit of some sort, Tupperware container, a huge container, in each classroom, utilizing some of the kitchen supplies at the high school. So I asked Chad to comment on that for me because he knows more about it than I do.
I just spoke to Shelley briefly. We discussed some of the items that she may rotate through fairly quickly in her high school cafeteria so that she can use those as like smaller stock rooms, and if she needed to cycle through it. So we wouldn't want to necessarily order anything outside of our normal items. We just add on and rotate through if we needed to do something like that. So at least we could supply the kids with some type of snack or beverage if they are locked down for a number of hours.
And we have a number of kids who have peanut allergies or require EpiPens and things of that nature, so we for those classrooms, or we knew for those kids where we'd supply them with the proper food in case they're locked down indefinitely. If we had a real incident, they'd be locked down longer than 2 hours, so they might as well have something for them to eat. I've been in touch with the Sangamon County Department of Public Health. They have a new grant that supplies Narcan, which is a drug to counteract heroin and opiate overdoses. The grant was for law enforcement and fire, and in talking to the director, she is thinking, we haven't decided yet, of letting us be a part of the grant as a trial to see how it works out. The reason is we have more and more kids using pills. Not a lot yet, but enough that it was enlightening last year. The pills are easier to conceal than alcohol. They're odorless. The high is a lot quicker, lasts a lot longer, it's faster. So we thought, if we can get a chance to get ahead of this, why not? So go ahead, Betsy. What we're going to do is formally apply for the grant. And I asked Dr. Wood about this about a month ago, ensuring that there's no problem with trained staff using this. Narcan is a nasal dosage. That thing on the right is what is used. 2 squirts in the nose. If we have a child that we think is under the influence and you apply the Narcan and he's not, it won't hurt him. It's not going to cause a heart attack or any kind of adverse reaction. The requirements of the grant, we'd have to be trained, of course. They'd show us how to administer it, and then there'd be some reporting procedures if we use it. I'm thinking maybe initially with the nurse at the high school and the middle school, and then perhaps the SROs. We have a great ambulance response in Chatham, but every time we call for an ambulance at one of the schools, it goes through 911 first in Sangamon County, then to Chatham. And if they're busy or on an accident or something else, it may be a while before they get to the school. So it's worth a shot. We're going to take a look at it and see.
So help me clarify the old farm boy in the room, but what, are you saying if somebody seems to be high or something?
No, they'd be unconscious.
Oh, they're unconscious.
When they're overdosing, they're unconscious. And you approach them just as you would if it was a CPR patient. You're shaking them, you're trying to see if you're checking their breathing, their pulse, or respiration. And obviously, if you know the student or know of the student, or a student has said, hey, he just took these in the restroom, then we have a little better idea of what.
So you're counteracting it, basically.
Yeah.
It's in essence, but not an injection, right?
Correct. That's correct.
Hey Randy, is there any sort of education program on the front end that we're educating these kids to stay away from these opiates?
We bring the police in at the start of the school year. When we have our class meetings, we have the police talk to each class. We've also had the police come in the middle of the school year. Came in last year at the high school, and we had 3 or 4 cases of look-alike Xanax found in the building. So yeah, there's constant education. The kids they feel like they're invincible. I don't know why, but they've even told us we're not going to drink anymore. We know that you can smell it, or you can use a wand, or some kind of an alcohol wand, but you can't stop us from bringing pills in. And last year at the dance, the homecoming dance, we found some evidence of pills in the restroom. This year, nothing. But we worked hard this year, had a lot of security. Had one incident, it was outside the school. Betsy?
I have a couple questions, Randy. Back in February of 2016, you presented this report. It was primarily about camera purchases.
Right.
But the last 2 pages, basically it was labeled 2-year plus plan. Okay, so number 1, I'm happy to say bullet number 1, Chatham Elementary School reconfiguration. Okay, done. But I guess I would appreciate not verbally tonight, but this was your 2-year plan. What's done? What's not done? What do you want to do? Is everything good? And you have no requests? Have a little bit more future orientation as far as what I see as potential areas that may require money. the sooner you give Charlotte heads up that there might be a monetary need, the easier it is for all. But most importantly, to take this list and get it out to the board as to what's happened and what's not happened.
I'll give you a written follow-up and prioritize those things.
Right.
I'll be honest with you, the two biggest things I got accomplished were the cameras and CES.
Right.
So I was
No, I know.
glad to get those out of the way. But
it's number
yeah,
one, and I'm just as thrilled as you are
Right.
because we were talking about it eons ago.
Right.
So that would be fine, and I
can
mean,
do that for
also
you.
there might be some monetary. I see some things that, that obviously cost money. So
Right.
some numbers associated with that would also be very much appreciated.
And the
I
other-
guess it should be a public document, really. I
Well-
mean, the follow-up to this report probably should be, as a consent agenda item for next month or something like that. We probably, since I'm asking specifically
I'll put that together
for
for
this information, probably should be
Okay.
approved for the next month's meeting.
I can do it. Now, before I start the second half of my presentation, are there any questions?
That's funny.
Questions? That's it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also just wanted to make note that Randy and his team, and for those of you that might not know, are extremely well respected throughout the state of Illinois and beyond. Randy has presented at the state level, these conferences and things like that, so there are a lot of schools throughout the state that seek his advice, and I just tell you, I think our community is extremely safe, as well as our staff and students, so thank you very much, Randy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Randy. Are you, just out of curiosity, are you going to be up at Triple I speaking again this year?
Not presenting this year.
Not?
That should happen for 2018, I think.
Sign him up.
Sign him up.
Okay, that was information only. And moving on to 5.2. At this point, does anybody have anything on the agenda that they would like to address the school board on at this time? Yes. If I could get you to stand up and work your way over to the podium and then just tell us your name and what your concerns are.
Hi, my name is Jessica Vincent. I'm the president of the high school PTO and also the vice president of the middle school PTO. And Randy, I just had a quick, has there been any information found on the anonymous text line? I know we had talked about that last year. That seems to be one of the things that, just talking to parents and students, that's why a lot of stuff doesn't get reported, even with like the drugs and the pills and all that stuff, because of the fear of retaliation. Springfield schools have like an anonymous text line. It kind of works like Crime Stoppers, but on a kids level. And I think we should maybe look into something like that, because that's why a lot of things don't get reported, because it's that fear of being like the tattletale. And there's a lot of bullying that already happens in every school. And sadly there are, statistics show that on average about 160,000 kids miss school every day because of bullying. And the school shooting at Mattoon kind of hit a lot of people the wrong way because it was close. It's closer than a lot of ones have ever been. And the PTO would like to help combat some of the bullying. And we are asking for, if it's possible, for kids that have been found in violation of the bullying policy to not be allowed to attend school functions. Like after prom or prom. They can't go to prom if they don't serve their detentions. They can't go to after prom if they don't serve detentions. And the reason being is it creates a very uncomfortable environment for the victims of the bullying. And that's what one of the things with after prom that we strive for is to create a safe place for kids to come after prom instead of being out doing, I don't even ask, but we know what they're doing. But last year for after prom, when I took over a lot of the planning of that, we doubled our attendance from 800 to 420. We ended with 830 kids at after prom last year. It's a lot. We weren't expecting that. So when, planning wise, we're gonna have to look at that differently. But when I know 2 students that attended homecoming this past Saturday that said that they couldn't really have fun because they've already been involved in bullying this year so far, and they couldn't really enjoy themselves because there was always that fear of something else happening at homecoming or at any school event. And I just, as a PTO for the high school especially, we just really don't think it's fair for kids to have to live in fear and feel that anxiety and not being able to enjoy themselves at prom or homecoming or Sadie Hawkins or whatever if the bullies are allowed to be there. So that's our 2 cents. But we would also like to help with that food, water, PTO thing in classrooms. Because I started a PTO, like a Facebook page for all of our teachers in the district. It's the BCSD teacher wish list for the teachers and the community to help get teachers the stuff that they need for their classrooms so that they don't have to pay for it. And we have like 642 people in there now, I think. And we've just been delivering stuff to teachers all over the district for whatever they need. I mean, the community is more than willing to help, so we've been doing that. But yeah, we would really like to help with that bottled water, snacks thing in all of the classrooms because my daughter's at the high school, so I heard all about how dramatic it was not being able to eat until 1:30 in the afternoon. And so we can help with that too. We'd like to help with stuff. We don't really ever get asked to help with anything. So that's all.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Vincent, thank you. I'm guessing then that Randy and Doug will touch base and Russ. So, anybody else have anything they want to address? School board agenda item this time? No? Okay, moving on then. We've got some consent agenda items 6.1 to 6.9. Anybody wish to pull any of them? If not, then do I have a motion to approve them as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Betsy, please.
Yes, Siren,
Yes.
Worley,
Yes.
Yurevich,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Uriaraj,
Yes.
and Cobb.
Yes. Personnel consent items 7.1 to 7.28. Anybody wish to pull any of them? All right, then I need a motion to approve them as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Betsy, please.
Worley,
Yes.
Yurevich,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Uriaraj,
Yes.
Maddox,
Yes.
Siren,
Yes.
Cobb.
Yes. Moving on, new business, 8.1, we've got our audit presentation from FY17. I'm guessing we've got some guests here from Mack and Associates.
Hello, I'm Tanya Mack with Mack & Associates. This is our first year doing the audit for the district. I want to point out when starting, everything went really smoothly. A lot of times when you're coming in as the new auditor, especially with the district this size, you can encounter a lot of issues, and I'm very happy to say we really did not have any at all. The transition went really smoothly. We were able to get everything we needed. We were out here for field work for 3 days. We brought a pretty big staff with us and kind of hit our pretty hard at once, but it went really well. So I do want to point out that things did go well. So if everybody wants to flip to page 1 of the audit report there that you have in front of you. This is your auditor's report. I just want to point out a couple things. On the bottom of page 1, basis for adverse opinion. You do report on a regulatory basis, which is an ISB accepted basis of accounting. So we do have an adverse opinion on the generally accepted accounting principles, but then an unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis, which is the basis that you report on. So that's on page 1 and 2. Page 3 and 4 is your balance sheet of the district for year end. I'm going to go through the total columns here at the end. Do want to point out that this does include your account groups, which are your capital assets and your long-term debt obligations outstanding. So total current assets, which is basically your cash on hand at end of year, was $23.3 million at year end. And then you can see your capital assets and amounts available and debt service amounts to be provided for a total assets of $214 million at year end. Total liabilities and fund balances are on the second part of the page. Total current liabilities of $597,000. Total long-term debt payable of $52 million. For fund equity, and you can see there you have an unreserved fund balance of $20,359,000, a reserved fund balance of $2.4 million, and then your investment in general fixed assets of $138 million at year end. The next pages 5 and 6, are a summary of all funds for the district for the year end. Total revenue receipts here. Total local dollars received $35.8 million. Total state revenues of $8.3 million. Federal sources of $2.2 million. For a total direct receipts of $46.4 million. Then you see your receipts for on-behalf payments. Those are the payments that the state of Illinois is required to make on behalf of the district to TRS. So you'll see that both as a revenue and as an expense. Those are not real dollars that are passing through the district, but because of the requirement for the state of Illinois to make those payments on behalf of the district, we do report those here on this page. So the total revenues here for that is $7.3 million for a total receipts of $53.8 million at year end. Total disbursements of $44.1 million. And then again, you see those on-behalf payment expenditures of $7.3 million for a total expenditures of $51.5 million, which ended the year with a surplus of $2.3 million over last year, bringing your fund balance at end of the year to just under $22.8 million. The next few pages are the detailed breakout of your revenues. And I know these statements are a little bit different from what you're used to seeing. You're used to the AFR. We present it a little bit differently just because it does break it out so much better. You can really see line by line with each fund. And then again, on the total pages here of page 9 and 10, it breaks it down for each fund total receipts, coming again to that $46.4 million. You're really going to see a difference here when you get to the expenses, which start on page 11. This starts your educational fund, and you can see we've presented your original and final budgets, your actual for the current fiscal year with an over-under budget, and then a comparative to last fiscal year as well. So it gives you a lot more information on these pages than just the standard AFR form. Pages 11 and 12 are your instructional expenditures broken down by function and by line item within that function code. You can see on the bottom of page 12 your total instructional expenditures this year of $21.4 million compared to $20.5 million last year. It is under budget by $54,000. Your budget for that was $21.5 million. Next few pages are your support services. And if you flip to the back, page 17 about 2/3 the way down the page, your total support services expenditures this year of 9.8 million compared to 9.9 million last year, and down from your budget of just under 10.4 million. You have your community services of $12,000, and then your payments to other local governments of $397,000 compared to $339,000 last year. Total expenditures on page 18 for your educational fund were at 31.7 million compared to 30.8 million last year. On page 19 is your operations and maintenance fund. Total expenditures here of 3.5 million compared to 3.6 last year, and down from your budget of 3.7 by 200,000. Page 20 is your debt service fund. Total expenditures here this year of just under 5 million. Last year's debt service expenditures were at 15.5. You did have a lot of refunding going on last year with your bonds, so that really explains the difference there. Page 21 is your transportation fund. Total expenditures of 1.8 million, which is down from 1.9 million last year and down by about 53,000 from your budget also. Page 22 is your IMRF and Social Security funds. Total expenditures here of 1.4 million, down about 5,000 from last year, and down from your budget as well from last year. Up from your budget by 5,000. So you were over budget in this fund by 5,000 this year. On page 23 is your capital projects fund. Total expenditures here of 523,000. Total expenditures last year of 4.8 million. You did have a lot of projects ongoing last year in your capital projects expenditures lines. This year you were down from budget of 810. Page 24, fire prevention and safety fund. Total expenditures this year of 109,000 compared to 178 last year. So that's the detail of all your individual funds. Does anyone have any questions on those at all as I'm going through? If you do, just feel free to stop me as I'm going through all this. I will just point out a few things in the footnotes, just for your information. On page 32 of the footnotes, this does break down your property taxes. Footnote, just for informational purposes, kind of gives you what property taxes you've received in this year on what levies. On page 33 is your general fixed assets, so you can see where those dollars are coming from. Last year you did have a construction and process line. This year that was closed out, so that you'll see the deletion there of 5.1 million. That's moving that down into the buildings and improvement and the capitalized equipment lines. So that's just reallocating that, and the explanation is right below that schedule. On page 34 is your long-term debt obligations. Shows your beginning outstanding balance. Your no increases this year. You had no bonds this year. Your decreases of 2.8 million for your ending principal outstanding of 52 million. And then it does also show what's due in the upcoming year. And then the next several pages break out each bond with their respective payment schedules. So you just have more information on that. On page 43, these are your contracts and commitments. So you can see on the top footnote your teachers' contracts, $1,778,000. This is at June 30th, any contracts that had not been paid out yet for July and August. So that shows that in there. You have compensated absences at year end, and then your lease commitments for the upcoming years. The next footnote, page 45, I'm not going to go detail through this one, but this is a good footnote to just flip through with your TRS. On page 47 shows the district's portion of the net pension obligation currently outstanding, as well as the state's portion of that net pension obligation for the district outstanding. Page 50 is the THIS footnote. Again, just read through that so you can see what those on behalf contributions and the employer contributions. And then page 51 starts your IMRF footnote. On page 52, this is some pretty informative detailed information here on your IMRF. Does show your participation information, both your retirees and beneficiaries currently receiving benefits, as well as inactive plan members or active plan members, so people currently contributing, and shows your total required rates for both the calendar year as well as the current fiscal year, and then your actual contributions for both the calendar year 16 and the current fiscal year. And then again, breaks down your net pension obligation on the bottom of page 52 for IMRF. Note 11, starting on page 55, this just breaks down your fund balance presentation. So back in the front when I mentioned your reserved and unreserved fund balances, this breaks down how that is all basically calculated and where it comes from in each fund. So not going to go through that in detail unless anyone has any questions. Pages 60 through 62 are additional IMRF and TRS information. And then if you flip to the back, on page 64, this starts your agency funds. So any of the funds that are maintained at the individual schools are all broken down here by school as well as by line that they maintain within that school for the activities. And then on the bottom of page 67, you can see what your total agency funds are. So total activity funds at year end ended at $577,000. On page 68, this shows a 3-year trend for your assessed valuations, tax rates, and extensions. You can see your assessed valuation has grown. In 2014, you were at $693 million, and currently in 2016, you are at $749 million. Accordingly, as you're growing, your assessed valuation is growing, you can see your tax rate per $100 assessed valuation has actually decreased, even though you're bringing in more dollars to the district. As that assessed valuation goes up, you're able to bring in more dollars with decreasing the tax rate. The next thing I will just jump to and just want to point out for you, page 71 starts the single audit section. And this is a separate audit that is required because your federal awards exceed $750,000. Anytime you expend more than $750,000 in federal dollars, you do have to have a separate single audit on those federal awards. We have to do additional testing on those dollars to make sure that you're appropriately spending, appropriately doing your reporting. So that is all in here. A couple things I just want to point out. With the single audit section, on page 77, there is a summary of prior year audit findings. So these were last year's audit findings that were in your single audit section. And you can see the 2016-1, the errors and misclassifications, that was corrected in this fiscal year. The bond credit was corrected in this fiscal year. The unauthorized interfund loans. There was a loan this year between the educational and working cash fund, basically made until you received your property taxes in. And that was all done appropriately and was all paid back by year end. Number 4 was the expenditures in excess of appropriation. You had several funds last year that were in excess of appropriation. This year, the only fund that you had in excess was the Social Security IMRF fund, and it was only over by $5,000. So again, not a big concern for us. That was fixed for the most part as well. And then the last one on page 78 was your IDEA excess cost worksheet. This was submitted, there was errors on it last year where that was all corrected this year as well. So that finding was removed as well. You do have a separate report there from us. And none of these findings were, that we have in this year, were significant enough that we felt that it needed to modify your opinion, as I discussed. But this is just communication that we feel, anything that popped up in the audit that we should bring to your attention. The first one I've already discussed, the IMRF Social Security Fund in excess of appropriations by $5,032. The next one is budgeting for those on-behalf payments. On the second page of the budget form, there is a line for budgeting on-behalf payments. So that is something that you should be doing. We have a lot of districts that miss that because it only shows up on page 2 of the budget. But that is something going forward that you should calculate and add to your budget to appropriately track that. This year's percentage was 38.54% for TRS that the state was required to contribute to TRS on behalf. Next year, that percent actually is reduced to 10.10%. So nearly about a 25% down, from where it was last year. It's about 25% next year. So a significant decrease. And this is the first year actually that they've had a decrease in all the years I've been auditing. So that you can calculate basically looking at your creditable earnings for next year and multiplying it times these rates that they've already released. And then the last item is your post-employment benefit. And this relates to your COBRA. Last year, your auditors had qualified your opinion, basically stating that you're not having an actuary for post-employment benefits. The only post-employment benefits that you have is COBRA, and the employees pay 100% of that. So when we were doing your audit this year, we felt like this really is not an issue for us. If there was an amount that the district, maybe your premiums would increase slightly because of this, it's immaterial to your financial statements. We put it on here basically as, hey, we know this was an issue for your auditors last year. We have done our due diligence and we feel like it is a very immaterial amount, if any. And that's why we've downgraded it here to a comment, just to make you aware that we are not reporting it as a finding on your audit. So any questions at all? I know I threw a whole lot of information at you really quickly there.
I have a question. First of all, I'm speaking for myself only, but I think the reformatting of the audit report is very good, and I know you work with Charlotte and Dr. Wood. It's very good, very, very helpful, easy way to do some analytic review, etc. Now, I didn't know anything about this reduction in basically it's the budgeting on behalf payments. So could you made reference that the state is currently funding at 38.5?
Correct. The state is currently, and I want to say required to fund.
Okay, right.
We all know that that's, there's a difference there. For the fiscal year 2017, the required TRS contribution rate was 38.54%.
Okay.
For fiscal year 18, the state's required amount has gone down to 10.10%. So a pretty large decrease in the state's required contribution, especially when you consider, if you flip back to that TRS footnote, and that, I'll just refresh it, is on page 47. So basically, the state has had an actuary, and this is something that was new in the last fiscal year. The state now sends out information on TRS to each district individually, calculating your portion of the net obligation for your employees. So if you look on page 47, and this is just for your employees, the net pension liability, which means the funds that are needed in their pension funds right now, the district's portion is $3.2 million. The state's portion required is $106 million. The state has in no way stated how those funds are going to be basically recouped and put into here. So that be what it may, but that kind of puts it in perspective as, all these years they've been increasing their required amounts, and they are short this much at this point for your members. Now, one thing to consider here is this takes into consideration if your members all retire today, which obviously is not going to happen. But it does give you a perspective of this is what you're short by, and this is what the dollars are.
So have they borrowed against it, or they just never funded it, or can you explain that a little bit?
Probably a little bit of both, honestly.
Okay. I was always under the impression TRS was fully funded, but that's, no?
So, okay, I understand you're saying the district's proportionate share of the net pension liability, and that's at $3.2 million, assuming they would all retire tomorrow.
Correct.
But are you recommending to any of your clients to actually do an actuarial valuation for each year?
No, this actually, you do receive this actuarial valuation from TRS.
Okay.
It is provided to you by the state, so each year you do receive that already.
Okay.
And you also receive an actuarial valuation from IMRF.
Yeah.
So you do receive both of those, and that was something new that was put in place 2 years ago. So that this is fairly new footnotes here.
Okay, so it is new, and so my question to you, what is your recommendation for districts to start budgeting a pension contribution?
You know, you are only required to put in basically your portion. The employees are required for their 9.4%. You have your different, your requirements for the federally funded or your 2.2 formulas. You have those requirements that you have to put in. I mean, there's nothing that it says you can't set aside, start setting aside and, kind of earmarking, hey, we're going to start putting, $200,000 a year aside for, what if they come back and say to these districts, hey, you need to come up with your portion. There's going to have to be a way that this starts getting made up. And I think that's the state's first part that they're doing is saying, okay, we're no longer saying we're going to put in 38% of your salary any longer. That's a pretty high number that the state was matching for, these retirement plans. Where I think that was their first step is saying, okay, now we're only matching 10.10%. So hopefully they can start adding to those dollars that they're putting in and decreasing this net pension liability.
Right, but I understand that, the state of Illinois' financial position is really poor. So, but am I understanding that correctly, that basically whatever let's say the state passes some sort of new legislation and whatever, makes it to zero or, significantly reduces it. But my question is, it seems like we know that we have a net pension liability of $3.2 million.
Correct.
And as a CPA, you probably recommend that your clients recognize that liability. So do you, at this point, since it's just newly instituted, are you suggesting to your clients hold on, or are you saying,
Honestly, for most of our clients, we're just telling them it's kind of a wait and see.
Okay.
And I want to point out one thing. If you look at the next page, on page 49, all of these numbers are assumptions, obviously. These are all, you're looking at how old your employees are, you're looking at when they're going to retire, you're looking at how much rate of return you're going to get on the dollars that you currently have in the plan. So there's a lot of assumptions that are built into these, and the actuaries do this for a living, and they know what they're doing. But if you look at the bottom of page 49, the current discount rate, so the rate that they're putting into all of this is 6.83%. That's where they come up with this 3.249. Now, if they basically give you this information to say, these are estimates. If it was 1% higher, your obligation would only be 2.6. If it was 1% lower, you'd be nearly at 4 million. So again, you're kind of in the middle there. But would it hurt to start setting a reserve aside? Absolutely not. If you have the current finances to do that. A lot of districts don't. A lot of districts are in the boat where they're living day to day, and especially with the state where you're not receiving your state funding on time. You have property taxes that you're waiting on, and you have a 4-month window that you receive your property taxes in, and then have to operate for a whole year without receiving anything else in. So there's a lot of factors in play, but as a board, that would be a decision you would make is, if you want to start building for the rainy day, what happens if they come back and say, this is on the districts and you now need to start, over the next 10 years, catch this up.
Right. Well, it's not like we're swimming in money.
No.
But on the other hand, I think it's a discussion that Charlotte and the Finance Committee and Dr. Wood can, speak to, consider this. I mean,
Oh,
as far
absolutely.
as-
And that's, one thing you want to consider. We generally want most of our municipal entities to have 6 to 9 months operating cash on hand. You have, I believe, 23 million cash on hand. If I remember off the top of my head, yes, 23.3 million. This year's operating expenditures was 44 million. So you're right there about that 6-month window. Now, you also have to remember that 16 million of that is the current year's tax levy that you received in May and June. So, these are things it's always the moving ball, but you need to be aware of that. Yes, sometimes people look at it and say, you have $22 million, what are you doing with this? You need to have 6 months operating cash on hand, and you're right there. And like I said, 16 million of that is the next year's levy. Yes.
And really, the capital projects fund, the 4.6 million, that's really designated. It's not really
Correct.
Available for our, as far as our
Operational expenditures, correct.
Do you have any thoughts on, as I look at our debt obligations, it appears that through like 2021, pretty reasonable, and then after that, it actually is kind of backloaded, like
Yeah, and-
significantly backloaded, where
Right.
our debt payments are gonna rise. big
And that
time.
tends
Is
to
that
happen.
normal?
It does. And usually the reason that happens is you try to keep it pretty consistent, at least 5, 6, 7 years out, so you can keep that tax rate consistent. Generally, when you get 8, 10 years out, those bonds have a possibility of being refunded between now and when they're callable. So that's generally how that happens is, you may decide in 3 years to refund a portion of those bonds and extend your payment schedules or, something like that. And in the past, you've done some refunding bonds pretty regularly. So that's possibly what those payments were structured for.
Well, thank you very much. It was a wonderful report, and I appreciate your firm's hard work and all the district employees that worked really hard so that it could go so smoothly.
All right, thank you very much.
Tanya, thank you. All right, then at this time, I need a motion to approve the FY17 audit report as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Betsy, please.
Yep, Yurevich.
Yes.
Brewer.
Yes.
Duraraj.
Yes.
Maddox.
Yes.
Zeri.
Yes.
Worley.
Yes.
And Comp.
Yes. Charlotte, thank you. Thank you, team. Yes, you're welcome to.
Long drive back home.
Night. Let's see, 8-2, we got an enrollment report.
Is it on me?
That's you, I
All
guess.
right. As you can see, I like doing charts and I like colors and rubrics and things like that. What I wanted to do is each year we do approximately a 10-year projection. So what you're looking at is FY09 through FY18. And there are a couple ways that I like to look at data. One, oftentimes people look at one grade level to the next. And it's really not necessarily what you're looking at. You really look at cohorts of students. It's nice to see an approximate number of students who are staying with our school district, and it's important to see the new students that are moving into our district. So when I look at cohort trend and then I look at grade level trend, you're going to see a little bit of a difference. A couple of things important to note. We've seen over this time period growth of a 10-year period of about 395 students. And when we look at projecting forward, we anticipate very similar growth, but it does depend on developments. We're working closely with the city and the townships in regards to plat surveys, what the potentials are for subdivisions, apartment buildings, condominiums. Those all play a huge role in student population. Apartment building is a relatively small plot of land, and in most instances have several children that live within or reside within those apartment buildings. And so we're kind of monitoring that over time. One of the things that I did was I looked at our current kindergarten student, or our kindergarten students in 2009 are our current freshmen at the high school. And in 2009, there were 311 of those students. And now as ninth graders, there's 364. So within that cohort of students, as they've moved through our system, we've seen approximately 53 student growth within that cohort. Now, we didn't break it down to the extent of seeing how many of those 364 have remained with us throughout the duration of their educational career, but that would be interesting data, and that's something I want to work on, because it's interesting to see how long our students and families stay with us in terms of, their mobility. Our current 10th grade students, when they were in the first grade in 2009, there were 303. Now that they're in the 10th grade, there's 341, and there's 38 new students to that cohort. For the second graders in 2009, who are now juniors, they went from 336 to 343. They only had an increase of 7 students within that cohort, but a lot of variables can play a role, move in, move out, different things. And our current seniors, who are third grade, when you look at this data, there were 316, and now they're 361. That was an increase of 45 students. When we look at that cohort growth, the number of students that grew during that time, there were 143. If you take an approximate average, you're looking at somewhere just under 400 students, right around that, in that neighborhood. So we're seeing about a 35 student growth on average within those areas. When you look at the cohort trend, and what I was saying is, if you look, so if they go from kindergarten to first, or second grade to third grade, that's how I follow them. So for example, if you took, one that just kind of sticks out, if you look at a third grade, when you saw those were second graders that moved into that grade level. So if you look at the cohort trend, they actually had 13, but if you were to go just on a grade level transition trend, you'd see a decrease of 56 students. Well, that was just a number, meant that grade level cohort, there was less than the one of the previous year, if that makes sense.
Can you do that again?
No, I can't. The whole thing? No. No, I can't.
No.
Now, what I can, if you look at, for example, third grade,
Right.
and you look all the way across.
Are you looking what fiscal year?
Third grade, all the way at the end, all the way across
okay.
FY18.
Okay.
So if you see in FY17, there was 308 as second graders, and there was 321. So that cohort, there was an increase of 13 students just over that time period.
Right.
But if you look at one grade level and say, okay, second grade moved to third grade, sometimes people look at that data and say, wow, we had a decrease of 56 students, and that's not accurate. So that's why it's important to look at the cohorts, and that's why I color-coded these for the sake of tracking that data. But our end, the one thing that did play a role was our residency check across the district last year. That did have, even though we saw a significant, I think, and I don't quote me on this, I want to believe there were over 200 new families to the district. Overall, we saw a decrease in our student enrollment. And so by doing that residency check, I think we were able to make sure that those who reside within our community attend our schools, and those that do not chose to go elsewhere if they could not verify. This year, we did do residency checks, but we did it on transitional grades. But nevertheless, we still saw an increase in our overall student population. We also add in, we have off-site students that attend other facilities due to their specific needs. And last year, we had 22 students who were off-site, and this year we have 28 students who are off-site. So we have a grand total of 4,807 students this year. So we do see growth. We are having discussions. A typical question that comes up is capacity within our buildings. And we do have capacity for growth. What we need to look at as we continue to grow is making sure that we're able to address things such as class size, trying to keep them at a reasonable number for all of our grade levels. So we're looking at those things. I think as we move forward and we look at things such as our strategic planning and where our commitment lies, you're going to see a continued effort to make sure we're able to address the increase in growth in our district. We will see continued growth, I expect. Just talking with, the Chamber of Commerce, seeing new businesses, talking with our local realtors, houses are selling and builders are building. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. And we're not going to have to build a new school anytime soon. I want to reassure people. But we do have an opportunity for some growth. And we're going to continue to monitor that growth in the coming years. Any questions?
What is off-site 20?
Off-site, we have students who, due to their special circumstances or learning needs, receive educational services away from our district.
Okay.
So there could be residential facilities and things of that nature where students are receiving extra services. Also, pre-K, I guess I'll just add in there, our pre-K in 16 was 93. It's relatively consistent. Last year we saw 95 and this year we saw 96, so we've seen an increase each year. Now I want to remind you that the state does not, ISB does not require 6-day enrollment any longer, but since we do have trend data going back many, many years, it's a very good period of time to compare previously, because our enrollment's a little bit higher than what this currently shows on our charts. But the September 6th-day enrollment date is a very good date to use.
Not slowing down.
No, we're not.
Make any questions? It's informational only.
Yeah.
Nope. All good? Dr. Wood, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to 8.3, we've got 2017-2018 insurance renewal.
We do. And actually, Ashley, I don't know why she's not here tonight. No, Ashley is home with her children, and we had put this on here, and she'd asked that I read a couple things. She is certainly our insurance expert. We have an insurance committee that met. There was an anticipation that actually insurance coverage was going to be significant. And we were really concerned about that. But as a result of working with a broker, the initial increase was going to be around 14.1%. When our broker went out, they were able to work some deals, and they got that down to approximately 11%. So it's pretty significant in regards to the cost for health insurance and what the rates we were able to get. And I do want to go in because she did give me something to read. So I want to make sure I read that for you. There it is. It starts out, Dr. Wood, you are a super, no. It doesn't say that. I'm sorry.
That's something else.
It says, for the upcoming insurance plan year beginning November 1st, there is no change to the life insurance or dental insurance rates. The dental insurance rates increased slightly as our insurance provider paid out more in claims than they brought in from the previous year. In quotations, they lost money. The insurance committee met with our insurance broker to review rates, proposals, and coverages. The insurance committee elected to continue with our current dental provider. Blue Cross and our health insurance provider quoted us at 14.1% increase, at a 14.1% increase for the upcoming plan year. Our broker was able to negotiate that down to an 11% increase if we made no changes to our current plan design. We did go to market and obtain quotes with several other health insurance providers. Ultimately, the least expensive option and the one that the insurance committee elected was to make a plan design change and remain with Blue Cross. The HSA and HMO plans will not change. The PPO plan changes or does have a change in the office visit copay. And I asked her, and that's an increase of $10 to the copay. So overall, in comparison to what you see out there, particularly with healthcare, it was an excellent day.
And I have to say too, being on the committee, the group we used previously, I never felt like they truly shopped around for your all benefits, and this group hunts down the best deals and truly looks for putting the market at work with these guys. And then if they sit with you and people still want to see what else is out there, they'll just go out and look like you asked them to versus try to talk you out to make changes. So I'm very happy with these guys.
Great.
So just throwing that out there.
Any questions, comments? Anybody else? All right, then, I need a motion to approve the 2017-2018 insurance rates as presented below.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Steve.
Thank you. Betsy, please.
Brewer.
Yes.
Uriaraj.
Yes.
Maddox.
Yes.
Zarin.
Yes.
Worley.
Yes.
Ravitch.
Yes.
And Cobb.
Yes. Ashley, thank you.
You're welcome.
8.4, first reading, administrative procedure 820 AP, community use of school facilities. That's for information only.
I'd like to ask some questions about that.
Okay.
Regarding the first reading of it. Let's see, I should direct these questions to Dusty and Jean Lovelace, correct? Okay, one of the things that struck me was there's no cancellation policy in here. And that is to say, I guess if they cancel 24 hours before the scheduled event, they still get a refund? Is that correct?
That is what we have done. We have very few, virtually none. I can't recall a group that's actually canceled in all the time we've been doing this.
Well, do you think there should be some sort of wording regarding this possible contingency?
It's nothing that, like I say, it's not anything that we've had to face a lot. We had some conversations about different kinds of fees that we might address, whether it's cancellation fee or a reservation fee, and we felt like that was going pretty far out there. We're making some changes right now, but didn't feel like adding any additional fees at this time was something that we needed to do.
Okay. My second question is under Group 1, I presume that you used the most recent press version of this policy? Is that, press is the,
We actually looked at, this is the policy that we've had for quite some time. We didn't really change any of the fees or.
no, press is it's what the Illinois Association of School Boards puts out. And I guess the easiest question to ask is, I presume, Dr. Wood, that this is the most updated one. Joe works really hard at.
Joe does. Joe works with them. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we use that, and then we also reached out, and I know that they did as well, reached out to other school districts in the state. And the alignment is very consistent when you look from one district to the next in regards to fees and policies.
Okay, so my question is, it's really a question to the board. It says, all other individuals, organizations must reside or be located in the Ball-Chatham School District. So how do you envision that political party organizations would abide by this? In the sense that, okay, is it, for example, I don't know, the Republican Party whose chair resides in Chatham, or does anybody have any ideas what this means? If we don't have any idea what it means, how about if we strike it?
Well, I can tell you in practice, that's what it means. That we have, that the people who are renting the facility are district residents. And they may rent it for this group or that group.
So has the district ever rented to a political party organization?
Sam McCann.
I believe we have.
Sam McCann.
Yeah, that's the one I can say.
Or an event that he has, it's like a family fair type thing once a year. Not every year, but I do recall that in the past.
That's the only one I can think of. And that's exactly the one I was thinking of, but I can't think of any others.
It covers this district, so I don't know if that's
I guess, well, I'm really actually just seeking board member input on this question of, do we want to continue to include political party organizations in this policy or not? Do you have any, does anybody have any opinions on this? Are you okay with it, or do you think it would be best if the district refrain from that?
like don't rent to them at all?
Right. I mean, I'm asking political party organizations, should we continue with that? Should we continue to offer our facilities to that?
It really is a listing of different types of organizations. It's more of a list of examples of things that would fall under category 2.
Yeah, but we know that we know Sam McCann has already used our facilities. So I guess my only caveat would be is if Sam McCann runs again and wins the primary, we just have to make sure that whomever is running against Sam McCann or anybody else for that position, that we don't say no to them. We have to make sure that our facilities are equally available to both parties that are running for the same office.
Yeah,
as we pretty much do.
We would never have a policy where we discriminate against one group or another based on the availability.
That's probably more the question that we get emails about, is how do you decide, say Sam McCann asks first, and the other, is it just first come, first serve? Is that how it is?
Yeah, essentially, exactly. Each building has a calendar, they call in, they try to schedule the date. We've had different times where folks have called in and said, hey, we want to use this building on this date. It's not available. That's not available. They've gone to other buildings. We've had times where they wanted to use a particular building, it's going to have construction this summer, and they've gone to different buildings. So we have a lot of facilities. So.
But Group 1 would get, so I guess does Group 1 take precedence over Group 2?
There's some language in here that all school functions will take priority over any outside facility usage.
But what if we're on Sam McCann here? What if he's got it and then if school, do you boot him out then?
There's language in here that actually allows us to say a game got canceled and we had to reschedule it. In fact, we had a scenario a year or two ago where there was a big, I think, a tumbling meet, and we had to reschedule something for the school, and we went to cancel it, and we ended up allowing them to go to a different building. And
on a smaller scale, that happens a lot with youth basketball practices, for example, when we have to cancel or reschedule games, and we need that gym space. Our school takes priority over the other organizations.
That's that's what we get the emails about is why does like YBA get, because they're not a school, but they're closely aligned, and how do you decide that? It gets all weird. Mm-hmm. We don't know what to say, I guess, is what our point is.
Have them call Dustin.
Yeah. That's fine.
Okay, I have just one last observation. Basically, I think the section at the bottom that talks about that these fees do not include X, Y, and Z. To me, this should be in bold, font size 24, because this is really an important, this is really part of the equation and the calculation. So as part of this policy, do you typically attach a schedule or a worksheet that says custodial X, O&M?
The back sheet has where the costs come in, but I actually have a Excel template where I plug in how many hours, what building, which rooms they're using, what the fees are, and it kicks out the total, and we send that to them.
So you definitely put in utility, you figure out, I mean, Mike Dobbs says it's, $500 to heat Glenwood for each hour or something like that, right?
We tried to calculate that into the hourly cost, and that's some historic numbers. We've tried to calculate that into the hourly cost.
Well, then my next question is, I was on the policy committee that we did this. It's $60. Can that be updated? Because there's no way, $60 to rent a facility that includes.
There's lots of different.
Okay, well, are you sure that $60, by the time you incorporate all of your heating and cooling costs.
For what area?
Is that for a classroom?
A classroom.
I got you, okay.
Anything.
No, that's per hour.
Per hour, $60.
Per hour.
Oh, per hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's hourly, except for the auditorium, which has got a.
When was the last time that this hourly rate was updated?
Can you scroll down to the very bottom? That's it.
13.
Okay, thank you. 13. Actually, we had a few adjustments prior since then with the auditorium. I believe it was updated. I'm going to say that was probably 2 years ago, maybe 3, where we actually went out and talked to the folks at the Hoagland and out at UIS to see what they were charging, and they did theirs more in block scheduling time so that they could utilize each part of the day, so that's how we sort of evolved to that. It's something more similar to what they do.
Okay, one last question. So do you think that after 4 years, the $60 per hour should remain the same, or should it be revised upwards, downwards? What's your market data?
It's pretty consistent. A lot of schools don't rent their classrooms, so we don't have a lot of data about that. Some just allow the use without charging because the building's open. We don't typically do any separate heating or cooling. We have the lights, but usually when they use it, for example, talk about classrooms. I won't say that we never do, but there's not a lot of times where we have to do any special heating or cooling. Auditoriums a lot different.
You think it ought to be more?
Excuse me?
Do you think it ought to be more? How much?
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna go out and get the market research, but in essence, we're a venue provider. We're a venue, I mean, we're completely different than, well, Southwind, but maybe not. I mean, I don't know how much more, Steve, but we don't know if $60 is low, right on, we don't know.
How many classrooms do we have rented out in the average year?
Probably less than 25, 10, 20, not very many. We don't do very many classrooms. There are a few.
Like, would that be for, like?
Most of the time, you'll see Cub Scouts or Brownies or something after school.
Okay, well.
So an hour here, hour there.
Yeah, I mean.
So I think you're balancing how much you're charging with the community relation piece.
Right, okay, well, I didn't know the nature of.
Yeah, and I mean, there are groups like those after-school groups with our students that we don't charge. We don't charge a facility cost. They use it at no cost. It's a community group. It's a group one. They're not charging anything, so we don't charge anything for them to come in and have Cub Scouts or Brownies or something after school.
So this is a first reading that's informational for us, so if we have questions, which I know I will as I go through this, as I look through it, we will direct those to you and Dusty, and then you'll respond back before we vote.
What we've done, and so you guys know, Dr. Wood and I and Dusty and Mike all met to go through this, and we tried to address some things that we know have come up over the last couple of years, things that as we've had requests, everybody's looking for a loophole, and so we're trying to tighten some language up. So really, I mean, that's really what we're doing. We weren't really trying to address the fees, but if we need to, we certainly can.
This is not a perfect science.
No.
I've worked on this before on several occasions, and it's very difficult because you have some school districts that won't charge any. You have some that purposely set it so high that they discourage anyone from using it, and so you are balancing the appropriate fee with the community relations piece, and you want to make sure you cover your costs, because you're absolutely right. It's hard to factor in the heating and cooling because you're already heating and cooling most of those things outside of a large auditorium or something like that.
So the email and the calls that I get about is like YBA, CBSI, CCFL are the closely aligned, if you will. So
YBA certainly is, from my understanding, and again, I'm pretty fresh with this, but from my understanding is when we had budget cuts and we lost our sixth grade programs, there was alignment with the YBA in order to maintain those sixth grade programs. And so we partner with them for boys and girls basketball, and in fact I do a lot of their scheduling, and we schedule their officials and then allow them opportunities to use the gym free of charge. So we've created that kind of alliance because of that dual need there to maintain those programs. So therefore, that's one of the reasons why YBA has such access to the gyms that they do. Our outdoor facilities are open, so we set a schedule out in the baseball diamond, softball diamond out at GIS this summer. We just set up a sign-up calendar. People came out and used it. To my knowledge, for the most part, it went very smoothly. There weren't a lot of conflicts over the use of the diamond. Or at least it didn't get back to me that there were. And so It just so happens the CCFL using that practice area, that green area out behind GIS, that's never been something where other groups have come out and said, hey, we want this same place at this same time. But our policies is written as such that our outdoor facilities are just first come, first served facilities.
Okay.
We don't maintain them specifically for the youth programs using them in town.
Well, the
And this
concern
document doesn't apply to those. This document.
to the outdoor fields.
Correct.
The outdoor
Okay.
fields.
These are actually district.
And one thing we did tighten up with this is with regards to those outdoor sports such as baseball and softball, it comes into play sometimes with soccer, is not allowing them to come into our gyms in the winter and do those sport-specific activities. And there was a gray area in that, or it wasn't necessarily practiced with fidelity, but the purpose of this updating this document, one reason is so that we can implement it with fidelity, that outdoor activities such as throwing a baseball and hitting the bleachers, we won't allow those activities to take place in our gyms, really to preserve the facilities.
The one I remember was a volleyball question. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is, how do you decide if YBA or this volleyball league is closely aligned versus Bill here starts his own team and he's not closely aligned, but he's a better coach?
It's the difference between, it's just the difference between, and Jim has answered a lot of these questions. And so I've referred to Jim a lot when having these conversations, but the purpose of a group one is a district league, youth league, as opposed to individual teams and individual going out and playing on their own club circuit. This is something that is trying to bring together multiple kids and multiple teams within our district to create that league.
So that's kind of your theory then?
Yes. And they have that umbrella insurance that covers their league.
Okay. And why don't we just bring them in-house? If you're already doing work and setting schedules and stuff, why don't we just bring them in? No?
If we have the budget, I know every coach that comes through my office asks me all the time, why can't we get our sixth grade programs back?
But what more would it cost? You're already doing all the work and using our facilities.
Uniforms, transportation, coaches' salaries.
Benefits. Okay, there's a lot. Could you put a number on that? We don't. We'll let Doug know.
Well, we can work on that too.
So information only.
Appreciate it.
And if you have questions, if you guys do, let me know, or let Dr. Wood know, I'll be happy to. And then I'll go get help, so, thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Yes, that I know.
8.5, permission to seek bids to replace scoreboards at the GHS football and soccer fields.
Yes. So
They keep their own score, or they?
They do. Actually, want to go through this. It's not a simple replacement, so there's a little more to it. So I wanted to take a minute to kind of explain and walk you through the thought process of what we want to do. First, talk about our current scoreboards. The scoreboards we have now are technologically obsolete. In fact, the bulbs that we use to light up our scoreboards, they don't manufacture anymore. So those supplies are dwindling, and pretty soon we won't have the opportunity to replace the bulbs that we currently have. Our sound system is part of this bigger project, and that's another reason that we didn't think now is the time to look at making these replacements, because our current sound system, Mr. Dobbs, I said coach, he had someone come out and look at him the other day because we have some speakers that are failing, and it's a significant amount of money. It was $25,000 to replace the sound systems at the football and soccer fields. What we want to do is we want to go out and get replacement scoreboards at the football and soccer fields that will house new speaker systems as well. So it'll be not only scoreboards, but it'll be new audio encompassed in that project. What we're looking at is video display boards. One at the football field, one at the soccer field, and a third small scoreboard to replace one of the small scoreboards at the football field. We're doing this for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is, and Dr. Wood and I have talked about this a number of times, is that we think there's an opportunity to connect with students through this project, because we think that through the video scoreboards, it gives us an opportunity to bring some life and breathe some life back into the multimedia program and create some of the game day production opportunities that the kids are interested in. And so we think this is maybe an opportunity to get some kids involved and working outside of the school day, working on doing game days with some of this production stuff. And we can do some really cool things. The thing that I'm excited about, and the thing I really want to emphasize tonight, is that we don't expect this to be at a cost to the district. And what we expect is to, when we go out to bid, what we will be asking is that the company we work with us on a marketing and advertising plan, and we go out and get commitments through advertising to fund this project. And if we do not have those commitments, and we're not going to do the deal. We're not going to build the scoreboards. We're not going to put any money of our own into the project. And we're confident that we can do that. And having the meetings that we've had, we're confident that there's that company out there that we can work with that will provide this service for us.
Would that include the $25,000 for the speakers?
This will include the speakers.
It would?
Yes.
So are you looking for a overall vendor or different vendors, like somebody with a naming rights? Or are you trying to do a whole umbrella? I mean, like Coca-Cola.
No, okay.
Coca-Cola.
Okay, so I didn't bring any visuals tonight of any renderings or anything, but if you can imagine for the video screen on the football field, let's say, you would have ad panels that would go along the sides. The video screen, as we're looking at it, would have it be by the berm, so it would be on the south side of the field, so we could actually put ad boards on the back as well to face Plummer, because we think there's an added opportunity there to do that. The soccer scoreboard would not just be for soccer, but it'd also be for track and field, and it actually flips purpose, so that during track season we have a track meet going on, it syncs to our timing system so that you could put lane assignments, lane results. It would be pretty interactive with the kids. So we think that we're creating a much better environment with the scoreboards, with the atmosphere, not only for the kids competing, but also for the fans.
Okay, I have a couple questions.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't expect me otherwise not to have any questions. Okay, so my question at hand is, you're looking, well, first of all, you're basically saying that you will get a whole bunch of organizations to commit to revenue, to commit to advertising. So what's your payback time? Are you thinking you can get all these people to commit to advertising and you will have this all paid up?
So the advertising agreements are typically 5-year contracts that are renewable. Okay. And so the plan would be to use those advertising contracts to pay the scoreboards, pay for the cost of the scoreboards.
Okay, do they prepay or what?
They sign contracts with us.
Okay, but who's going to undertake the cash flow?
What's that?
Well, okay, we're going to go out to vendor A. Let's just say a video screen is $500,000. Okay, let's just say that.
Okay.
And so somebody has to write the check to the vendor so that they get paid, correct? Who's going to write that check? I mean, who's going to write the check for $400,000 when the company is in year 5 has completed?
So the vendors we've talked to work in partnership with these advertising agreements, so we wouldn't write one lump sum check to the company without having those advertising dollars. It would be staged to the same 5-year period, and there are a couple different options of financing.
You mean the provider of the board?
The provider of the board provide the marketing services as well, so they will come in and actually help us sell the advertising agreements.
It's pretty good.
She's probably asking, is the money going to flow through our books, or will it be done outside?
No, it would be flowing through our books.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then my question is, why wouldn't we, okay, my next question is, have we gone out to see if there are local underwriters? We go to 4 key business, Chatham businesses and say, would you be willing to underwrite one of these scoreboards? Not unlike what Glenwood has with Pepsi.
So Pepsi, for example, I'm glad you brought up Pepsi, because Pepsi and Coke are no longer in the scoreboard business. As far as providing scoreboards, which, traditionally speaking, years ago, schools a lot of times would get their scoreboards through the Pepsi. As you know, we have a long contract with Pepsi.
Right.
We tried to get them to paint our current scoreboards recently, and we're unsuccessful in having them do any type of painting to make them look more modern. The plan.
And you're saying that's true for the digital sign outside the high school?
I'm talking about the scoreboards.
I know, but, okay. So you're saying Pepsi's not interested in the score?
So they're not interested in buying a scoreboard like they used to.
Okay.
They may be interested in being an advertising partner with us. And so what we would do as part of the bid process is we would put into the bid what we are seeking as far as as advertising and working with the scoreboard providers for what we would do to build advertising plan and set up those meetings where we would go out and solicit those.
So, and you're using a consultant for this, is that correct?
There is a marketing branch of these scoreboard companies because, truth be told, most schools can't afford video scoreboards, but a lot of schools are putting in video scoreboards because they are working through the marketing arm of the scoreboard company to solicit advertising partnerships in order to fund these projects.
Probably the watch out I think of is what if, will it be fairly public? Like if I have a big
Yes.
business in town and didn't know about it, I would be mad.
So the plan would be to hold a public meeting in order to introduce it so that we didn't go to company A before we went to company B. We want to give everybody equal opportunity in order to partner with us. Because we don't want that to happen.
Okay,
Absolutely,
but
that's been discussed.
I think our local companies and businesses deserve the first shot.
Okay, so when you say local, does that, you're talking local school district wide? So,
I mean,
Chatham Clarion, for instance.
well, let's make sure that, a nice invitation, right, the Chatham businesses. I think we need to be respectful.
oh, absolutely.
So I got another question. Okay, we're talking about scoreboards right now, okay? And I understand that's one agenda, okay? But if you're gonna go out and do something, our school down the way, SHG, went out to Todd Green and got $14 million or whatever it was to build that whole complex.
Yes.
Why don't we think bigger?
Well, my thought process is we do this project, we secure the revenue from the advertising, that it first pays off the scoreboard, and then there's a source of revenue for us so that we can extend to other projects down the road.
And if the interest is there, and you go with a bigger scoreboard?
Well, I think the interest is there. We have other opportunities to branch out and do some other creative things.
And I think
But you gotta start somewhere.
Yes.
This is your attempt.
This is an attempt, and I think to your point too, you've got the Chatham Chamber. I mean, there are groups out there that certainly support the business of Springfield Chamber, and there are a lot of chamber business in regards to being able to go out and talk to individual companies about supporting this type of project.
And will you be able to police the organizations that are allowed to advertise on our scoreboard?
That's good.
Yes. So one thing that we've talked about is, so if there's a company who wants to advertise with us and they say they're a tobacco company, obviously we would not allow something like that to happen. Is that what you're asking?
I know I was up in Kansas City over the summer for a soccer tournament where Shields put in, I believe it's 16 turf fields in Kansas City and paid for all that. I know we got a nice big Shields here too.
Yeah, the thought had occurred to me as well.
You were telling about the learning opportunity for the students, so the students can take the videos and everything, that's what you meant?
Yes, there's a whole multimedia component to this. Game day operation, where they're running not only ads through the screen itself, but also doing some cool interactive features, bringing in some interactive, up-to-date, like scores from the area, those kind of things, graphics.
Yeah, my question is, the school, they have any department, communication or visual communication department? They can shoot the video, but they have to edit and process all these steps.
It's a work in progress, really. I know we have a small group of students right now that have been coming to games on Friday nights and videoing and doing some, and we're working on posting that after the fact to our website. So we have some interest from some kids that want to be involved in various ways like that, and we want to grow that.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, the board, nor does the budget reflect any sort of expenditures for a media program. I mean, we would have to, and furthermore, I mean, it may well be valid that our scoreboards need to be updated. They're embarrassingly obsolete. But please don't wrap in as a reason developing, that this will be for our media program, because that hasn't been discussed. I mean, I feel very strongly, okay, this might happen, but don't use it to justify these scoreboards. I guess I should direct that to you.
I would disagree. I think that a huge part of this, and disagree to the extent that from, the multimedia aspect of it, that was a huge program. I mean, when I first came here, that's one of the first things I was hit with, was what a great program that was, and how can we get that back? And it was interesting because when we were discussing all of this, the scoreboard companies, and they've tapped into that in other districts, and so they provide in-service, they provide training, so it's not a selling point from the standpoint of saying, because it's not a bait and switch saying, hey, look at all this wonderful program just to get it. This was a popular program here, and this really provides, I think, an opportunity for us to continue to offer something even beyond, because when I look at multimedia, I'm not just looking at developing, doing commercials or running halftime shows or whatever. I really do believe that through this, it could be a jump start to looking at our multimedia, looking at our, student production company type kind of thing. So I agree with you to the extent that it shouldn't be used to sell a product, but I do believe that if this is done properly, we can revitalize that multimedia curriculum and bring that back. That's one of the things that we talked extensively about this, because I don't ever want it to be seen as we're trying to, hey, this sounds attractive so that we can get it. This was a genuine piece of the discussion about the great things that we could do with a multimedia program.
Well, I will state, the Student Improvement Plan meeting is coming in November. It's going to be a fantastic opportunity for the administrators, everyone to talk about the curriculum and instruction plans. But I am very sensitive to making sure that our elementary, our GIS, and our GMS teachers' class sizes offerings are equally reviewed relative to the establishment or reestablishment of a media program. Now we have to look at what's for the greater good. And so we can have that discussion at a later time, but I do think the Student Improvement Plan meeting will be a really good opportunity to see, what the recommendations are.
So back to this agenda item, if you're wanting to get permission to seek bids and it's going to be a net cost to the district, what are you going to use to determine who gets the award of the bid, or how are they going to?
So we've,
you know what I'm saying?
So we've done a lot of background on this. Not only have we talked to the two big players in this industry.
Right, because this isn't new. There's other schools doing this.
And we have other schools, and I've reached out to other ADs, and I've had those conversations as well. So based on the references from the other schools that have used both companies, and I think in a big part is who will be willing to come in and actually provide these advertising services for us, knowing that if we don't pull together the monies needed to pay for the project, that we can walk away without spending any money. That's a big piece of the puzzle for us, because, and we're going to put that in the bid. So if they're not willing to do that, then they're not willing
make it net zero.
Because what we're not going to do is enter in with a company that says, go ahead and buy our scoreboard and we'll go ahead and help you sell this, and we're confident we can help you sell this. We're not interested in doing that.
Okay.
But it is just or the football field basically, and the soccer field.
Football and soccer, track.
So like
for now, but a softball, I can see that following up right down the road, because softball at the high school and JV baseball field. Well, basketball is at the high school is pretty well set up. We also have some things to look at GMS.
GMS and GIS, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are other opportunities out there as well. Absolutely.
So if they're, just curious, if they're willing to do all of the legwork.
Well, we work together, and so I wouldn't say they're coming in and doing it all. But
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I'm like, why don't they just put the scoreboard up and figure out how to pay for it themselves?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If they're going to get the advertising.
No, it's certainly working together.
Okay.
It's going to be a lot of work. There's no question.
Where do they make their money? How do they make their money?
Scoreboard.
Do they get a
The
cut
scoreboard.
of it?
The scoreboard company makes the money on the scoreboard.
Okay, so the scoreboard employee is then out trying to garner advertising revenues around here?
The scoreboard company is trying to help us sell advertising so that we can buy their scoreboard.
Okay, so how do they help you? I mean, do they?
They help us develop an advertising plan. They will essentially run that introductory meeting that we bring all the let's say this Chamber of Commerce or whoever the businesses are we bring in. They will help train us and go and even have individual meetings with us and individual companies if need be.
I don't think you'll have a problem getting the money, but if you do, what's our backup plan if our scoreboard is cracked?
The backup plan, if we can't get the money, we're going to build in some alternative options into the scoreboard packages so that we have different levels that we can take a look at. So if, let's say, we get to, if this is the goal and this is the scoreboards that we want to achieve and we're only able to raise this much money, this is option B and this is option C. So we're going to plan for some of those contingencies.
But it'll all be with the same company and their lower level scoreboards? Is that what you're saying?
Based on how the bid would work out, I imagine so.
Then who maintains the scoreboards, us or the company?
Just like now, there'll be warranties, but where there'll be what do we look at? Mostly 5-year parts,
2-year parts and labor.
Yeah, something like that.
5-year warranty on parts and 2 years
Yeah.
parts and labor on site.
Both companies we've looked at are American-made companies that we've talked to.
So Mike, if there are repair requirements, are you ready to put these scoreboard repairs under your budget? You don't need to
that's
answer
something we'll have
that.
to deal with, it's.
You don't need to answer.
My hope is that nothing will break for 5 years, is what my hope is. So we'll have to see in 5 years.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Do we need a vote?
Yeah, it's an action item. We need
So
to,
moved.
there you go. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks. Betsy, please.
Yes. Brewer.
Yes.
Uriaraj.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes?
Siren.
Yes.
Worley.
Present.
Yurovich.
Yes.
And Cos.
Yes. Dusty, thanks.
Thank you.
Mike, you got something, you're up next.
I have
something, aren't you?
something here, yes,
I'll
sir.
proceed with using Henson Robinson to replace 2 defective boilers at Columbia High School. These health life safety.
Last month I came and asked permission to seek bids to replace the two boilers at Glenwood High School. They have cracked heat exchangers, they're beyond repair. They're leaking natural gas into the room, and it's just not safe. Now, we can't run them at all, so. We went out to bid, we invited a number of people. We had 3 people show up at the pre-bid meeting, and we had 2 people provide bids. Henson Robinson came in at $94,150. E.L. Pruitt came in at $105,000. I can't read that from here. $105,642. I added a 10% contingency onto it, so the total number for Henson Robinson would be $103,565. So what I'm asking is approval to go ahead with Henson Robinson to replace these boilers at GHS. It's a health life safety. We already have the amendment done and all that, so it'll be funded out of health life safety.
So moved.
Questions?
I guess I'm shocked there were only 2 bidders. Are there that few people that do it?
There are more companies that do it. I invited, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 of them. 3 showed for the pre-bid meeting. Got 2 bids.
Did we go public with our?
Yes, sir. It was advertised for 10 days in the Clarion.
Okay. Second.
Any further discussion? Betsy, please.
Yes, Duraraj.
Yes.
Maddox.
Yes.
Siren.
Yes.
Worley. Yes. Ravitch.
Yes.
Brewer.
Yes.
Cop.
Yes. Mike, you're up again, looks
Again.
like.
This time, I'm seeking permission to go out to bid to replace the air conditioning systems on the 100 and 200 wing at Chatham Elementary School. The existing system, the heating system was put in first, and then in 2004, the cooling was added to those existing old heating units. So they're coming up on 14 years old. Life expectancy on it, it's like a condensing unit like that you have at your house is what they are. The existing units. So the life expectancy is about 15 years and we're at 14. And they're in really, really bad shape, and they're just, they break a lot, and it's very, very maintenance heavy. So what I'm proposing is to go back in with to put the bid out for a VRF system or VRV system, which is very, very similar to the new high school wing. And Ball Elementary has them, and a lot of schools have VRF systems here, and it provides individual control in the classrooms. It's just a much, much nicer system, a whole lot more efficient, just a better operation overall. Yes, sir.
Well, have you calculated the savings we would realize by running that system versus another?
I have not. I have not. I don't have a number, but I can guarantee you it'll be a whole lot cheaper than what it is right now. I mean, I don't have an actual number.
Why would that be?
Why would it be?
Yeah, why would it be cheaper for sure?
Just because of the efficiency of the equipment alone
technology.
today. Oh yeah, new technology, absolutely. And all the controls will be digital control systems, and there's very little variance in temperatures, and it's just a whole lot more efficient system. Much, much better designed. So basically, I'm just asking to go out to bids for it right now, and then we'll talk later on.
Mike the construction committee did tour the building, and it's kind of complicated because there are multiple wings.
It's very complicated.
He was very thorough, and
It's very complicated. So really what it is, it's a pre-K wing. The 100 and the 200 wing is a pre-K wing, and I guess that's the first grade wing behind it. It's on the north end of the building, east and west wings.
It's something that has to be done. I mean, we don't have a choice.
Eventually, it's going to have to be done. I mean, there is no choice. Eventually, there is no choice at all. So, I mean, do we have to do it right now? You don't really have to do it right now, but if you don't, you're going to be doing it in a couple of years, and we don't have bond money. That's my biggest concern.
How many bidders do you anticipate jumping on something like this?
I'm going to invite as many as I can possibly invite, and when I did the chillers last year, I invited 3 or 4 companies from St. Louis area, 4 or 5 companies from here, and we had about 7 or 8 show up for the pre-bid meeting, and we had, I think, 3 or 4 bids on bid day. So I thought we turned out pretty good.
Okay.
And I'm going to do the same thing this time. The problem with a job like this, or the chillers at the high school, or whatever the case is the size of the project. That's what's, you have to have a pretty good sized company that can bond that kind of job. It's $1 million, $1.2 million job. It's a big, good sized company that can bond that.
In the past, we'd used there's a website for Illinois bids. Are we using that still?
I've looked into it, but I haven't actually used it for a project like this, no. Not saying that we couldn't, I just have not done it.
It just seemed fairly well known. Maybe we can get more bidders if we.
Possibility. We can advertise on that, absolutely, sure.
I guess that'd be my request.
I'm open for advertising, however we can get it out there.
How much of a disruption will it be for the installation with the students?
It'll take up the entire summer.
So you'll do it.
It's during summer.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, this is a considerable sized project. It's, I mean, we're going to tear that school to pieces on those 2 wings for sure.
Now, will there be any cost savings realized from the components that are going to be removed?
Scrap value, maybe.
That's all.
But the thing about that is usually scrap value is the contractors. We usually give it to them because that usually lessens our cost too, because they usually consider that scrap value as well. It's not much. I mean, at that school, there's just not much scrap value at all. It's really not.
Kim, you're gonna want to stick around another 20 years now.
Going somewhere next summer.
And I already told Randy about it, and we've already started discussing it, but we're going to tear that school apart if this happens.
Okay, do I have a motion then?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Betsy, please.
Yes, Maddox.
Yes.
Siren.
Yes.
Worley.
Yes.
Ravitch.
Yes.
Brewer.
Yes.
Rush.
Yes.
And Cop.
Yes. Moving on, 8.
I'm back again.
Mike?
I'm back.
Chillers, high
Yes,
school?
sir. So this is to go back out for bid for the chillers again. This is basically the same thing we did last year. We've added a couple of components to this, and I haven't actually written the scope yet, but I just wanted to pass on it. And we walked this school as well. Since we walked this school, we have what we call frequency drives on our fan motors, which vary the speed of fan motors. It's an energy saving device. We've lost 4 of them in about the last 2 months. So, and they're not crazy expensive, but $800,000, so we've lost 4 of them. So in this project, in addition to doing all the pumps and flushing the system and all that stuff, I'm also going to add replacing the fan drives, the VFDs for all these fans too. So, I mean, it's a considerable expense, but they're going to break, and we've already lost 4 in 2 months, and they're 18 years old, 17, 18 years old. They're at their life expectancy.
How many total are?
There's 2 per air handler, and I think there's 16 air handlers, but we've replaced some of them, so I'd say there's probably a dozen, probably. And they aren't all $1,000. We bought one for, depending on the size of the drive, I think one of them was $400, but the highest one so far has been $1,000.
Mike also gave us a tour of the chillers and was very thorough. I guess I express my frustration that they're 17 years old and they had a 20-year life expectancy.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's frustrating, but it sounds like we're really ramping up the maintenance of our systems.
I plan to, yes. Well, we are ramping up the maintenance. I'm limited with staff. We are doing some maintenance, but at a later date we'll discuss staffing as far as maintenance goes. But we are addressing it. We just don't have the staffing to do it the way it should be done. Now the chillers, systems like that, those things take priority. That's just all there is to it. I mean, you have to take care of those big systems. That's for sure. So we are working on that. It's just a staffing issue.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Betsy, please.
Yep, Siren.
Yes.
Worley.
Yes.
Ravitch.
Yes.
Brewer.
Yes.
Rush.
Yes.
Maddox.
Yes.
Cop.
Yes. Mike, thank you.
Thank you.
Communications, we got 9/1, future board meeting dates. Like we got a couple next week, 2nd, 3rd. 24th, regular meeting. SIP curriculum reports, November 6th. Any others?
Facilities and grounds, didn't we cancel that? That's a
Fourth
special.
meeting.
Not the October 2nd meeting, no, the third committee meeting on the third
that's
has
right.
canceled, not the second.
Any others anybody needs to point out, bring to our attention? All right, 9.2, citizens' opportunity to address the school board on anything, not just an agenda item. Any concern, any topic? No? Do you have an answer for that phone down there? Sorry. Had to. Citizen?
I just wanted to update the board and anybody else that might be interested, that resolution that we talked about, taking it to the IASB about bidding all projects versus using exceptions. There are 24 districts, I believe, in Illinois, and the IASB had one representative from every district. So there are basically 24 people around the table, and I presented to them, which about 7 other people had topics too for a vote in Chicago. But when I presented, their response was, good luck getting that law passed through the Illinois legislature because nothing's going through the, but they actually, in my opinion, one-upped it. They offered to train all 900 or whatever school districts and do presentations in Chicago to explain why you should bid all projects. So to get all the school districts, because they were all in, I guess, our mindset that anytime we can keep the vendor projects low, it gives us money for the teachers and the buildings. So, and there was actually an engineer in that group, there was a builder in the group, and it was absolutely unanimous. They thought it was a great idea. So I was very heartened by that, and it'll come to a vote in Chicago in November. So there's your update.
It's a good job.
Thanks, Mike. Motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.